Okay, I think I'm here. If you can see me, let me know in the comments. I have zero clue what technically just happened. Um, yeah, I have zero clue what just happened with technology. That is crazy. I'm hoping that I am actually live now. I had to restart my entire computer, and it was telling me that I was not connected. My mic was not connected. My webcam, I don't know. I don't know. So if anyone is in the comments and can let me know if I am actually live now, that would be amazing. I'm just going to assume that I am and start talking and going through. If not, then I guess I might have to. Okay. Okay. Yay. Hello. I am here. Thank you for confirming. That was crazy. Thank you for sticking around if you're still here. Welcome into the Dear Miss Fantasy podcast. We're starting 10 minutes later because as I started my stream, apparently my mic decided that it was no longer connected, which is weird because I was definitely live in another stream like an hour ago and there was zero issues, but that's okay. We will proceed because today's topic is fun and I do want to talk about it. And I would have hated to push it back another week, although, hey, it'd be fine. It still would be impactful a week from later. But this week's talk was going to be injury impacts and coaching changes happening in the league here because we have had some big movement that is going to have massive effects for fantasy football. I am not exaggerating. I'm not one that tends to use hyperbole. So when I say that we have massive changes, just know that we have got massive changes going on here in the league. So we're going to talk about all the coaching changes. We're going to talk about the injuries, the unfortunate injuries to Bo Nix and Zach Charbonnet, because that actually, obviously Bo Nix from a quarterback perspective, depending on his timeline and whatnot, that it affects his entire fantasy team, right? But the Zach Charbonnet injury is very, very interesting in terms of how that is going to affect things with Kenneth Walker, who is a free agent and who I was personally looking forward to seeing exit Seattle and go find a place where they will actually give him a full RB1 workload, because it has been such a weird season of trying to wrap our minds around the reduced usage of Kenneth Walker. I know Zach Charbonnet is fine, amazing, no issues there, but man, the lack of use of Kenneth Walker, who is truly, as we showcased in the previous, Zach Charbonnet went down and we get, 100% of Kenneth Walker. And what do you know? He's like an incredible high upside player that we knew he was. So I don't know. It was kind of confirmation, at least, that, from a draft perspective, we were on the right track. In theory, Kenneth Walker should have been fantastic, right, in Seattle's system. So gives us a nice preview of what could be if we have the Zach Charbonnet injury extend and they opt to keep Kenneth Walker and either franchise tag him or, keep him or sign him to a long-term deal. I hope they don't sign him to a long-term deal just for Kenneth Walker's sake there, but I digress. And we should also talk about all of the coaching changes here. I think we're going to start us off with the coaching changes here. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments of course. We're going to go a little ad hoc in terms of the coaching changes here. We're going to just riff off the top of our heads here. The first one, the first timely one here. Let's start off with Buffalo and their very interesting coaching changes that they are having there. Very interesting coaching changes. Obviously, firing Sean McDermott, a little bit controversial decision for people, right? In terms of, okay, he's been there a while, they've had success. How much of the success is really him? Obviously, he is not, the offensive guru or whatnot, defensive focused guy. But when we're looking at him and the tenure that he's had, this is going to be very interesting to see how Buffalo moves forward. Especially because of the weird timing and stuff, they can't actually interview any of the coaches that are participating in the playoffs of the Super Bowl. So unless they decide that they want to forego that path and go with an option, like, apparently they're interested in potentially hiring Joe Brady and upgrading him. Since they upgraded Brandon Beane, they might as well just keep on doing promotions there, right? Apparently we could be seeing Brian Daboll, which is a peculiar one for me, Because if your frustrations were that Sean McDermott couldn't get you over the hump in terms of getting that, one big win, I'm not entirely sure what Brian Dable ever did to showcase that he has those capabilities, right? And then Malik here commenting the weird presser. Yeah, I mean, it was weird is even kind of underselling it there. I mean, I've like, I'm not entirely sure I've ever seen, and that when you make Jerry Jones look highly professional, that's a problem. You're sitting there talking about Keon Coleman, who was on the team. I've never witnessed that type of converse, like the defense level of, well, Sean McDermott was the one that, to be clear, he was the one that drafted Keon Coleman. That had nothing to do with Brandon Beane, who then took responsibility for it because you are the GM. You are responsible for the draft picks. You could take the recommendations of your coach and all that, but at the end of the day, you select those players. You say no or you say yay or whatever. If you listen to them, that's awesome. But he was involved to some degree. The defense from the Bills owner was peculiar to speak about a player that is currently on your team in that way, literally severing a relationship. Like Keon Coleman obviously is a problem in terms of his production on the field, but it's not as if you were moving on from him, after the bench, and you brought him back. You brought him back, you put him on the field. He wasn't inactive for the playoffs. He caught a touchdown pass. He was around, right? So he's in contract. He's young. He's a first round pick. Obviously, we've seen teams move on from first round picks, but that was something else, right? How do you, as Keon Coleman, then you're walking around the building, do you just turn the other way when you see the owner? Like that was very peculiar there. So it's kind of weird, the whole mess in Buffalo here. I highly disagree if they hire Brian Dable, because your whole concept is that Josh Allen is awesome. Okay, well then what do you need Brian Dable for? He's there to develop a quarterback and whatnot. You need somebody from a coaching perspective that can win, and Brian Dable has proven to do none of that. So very interesting. More positive stuff though in terms of coaching hires. Tennessee, kudos to them too. I'm surprised, right? And I give them this kudos because I did think that they were seriously going to hire Matt Nagy. And I think Matt Nagy kind of thought it too. I wonder perhaps if Matt Nagy, went back to Kansas City and was like, yeah, no, I'm feeling good. I think I'm going to get this job. And they're like, okay. And they go on and move on and plan for Eric Bieniemy. Go ahead and grab him. But thank goodness they did not hire Matt Nagy. I think that Robert Saleh is a good hire for them. Obviously, when we look at him, we know that he is focused on defense. Tennessee does need to upgrade their defense. Obviously, the development of Cam Ward is very critical here. But at the very least, we won't get the anti-development of a coach like Matt Nagy. And Robert Saleh, coming from San Francisco, he's got plenty of connections that know the system. He did the same thing in terms of bringing in a San Francisco connection to the Jets in Mike LaFleur. That did not work out so well. You can argue, was Mike LaFleur's system an issue, or was ultimately the decision that he and the GM and whatnot and everybody made to draft Zach Wilson the problem? I mean, we'll see. Apparently, LaFleur has been fine heading over to LA. So, but at the end of the day, I think I trust Robert Saleh to bring in a solid offensive mind, or a solid offensive mind that can really help push Cam Ward in the right direction, because he showed a ton of promise, right? There was a lot of glimpses of hope in the Tennessee offense, as much hope as you can have. Obviously, Chimere Dike looked fantastic, electric, right? I feel like they made some solid late round picks, second or day 2 picks there. With Chimere Dike, Alec Ayamaner looked fine. They got to figure out what they do with Calvin Ridley, because I unfortunately think he's over the hill, right? They got decisions to make at running back. You've got Tony Pollard in contract. You've got Tyjae Spears in contract as well. But obviously, they both showed upside in what was a pretty desolate situation. So they're not bad running backs, right? So ultimately, probably got to get a true wide receiver one here. But if someone can come in with a good system they can push Kim Ward in the right direction because I didn't mind what I saw. I didn't see any major issues there. I think he shows promise. So as long as they can keep pushing this in the right direction, we will be okay there. Yeah, that Keon Coleman thing, the total disrespect was just absolutely ridiculous. There, I as an owner, like I can't fathom. I don't understand what made him say that. It was the strangest press conference I've like ever seen. For Black Lion, so many coaching changes in the AFC. Fantasy is going to be so unpredictable next year, more so than unusual. Yeah, I think so too. But I think some of these changes are going to be very positive here. I'll jump to. I was going to do the offensive coordinators later here, but I'll jump to offensive coordinator hire in terms of fantasy change because it's actually like massively significant. Like the Robert Saleh hire, like, yay, that's pushed Tennessee in the right direction. I think that's good. Y'all actually made a logical, stable pick there. So kudos to you because Tennessee, I didn't think y'all could do it. So this was great decision there. But in terms of one that is going to definitely affect the fantasy landscape there, it's not official, right? But I am so excited to see Mike McDaniel in LA. That right there, that announcement there brought me pure joy. I never feel bad for there's nothing wrong with Greg Roman. It's just not fun from a fantasy perspective, right? That's not an enjoyable offensive experience for us. That's not the best way to utilize Justin Herbert. The running back room of forcing committees is so irritating. We talked maybe two shows ago, and I had a video on my YouTube channel where I talked about Amari and Hampton. It was like the early rankings. I think it was the early rankings video where I talked about Amari and Hampton and the problems that I have with him and his ADP in 2026 because of the fact that Greg Roman is so tied to a system that limits the upside of the lead back. Like we would be remiss to not note that we saw, incredibly high ceilings from both running backs, quite frankly, from both Amari and Hampton and Kamani Vidal. Amari and Hampton's coming immediately before his injury and immediately after the Najee Harris injury. Kamani Vidal, his high upside games coming after the Amari and Hampton injury. But those two things have something in common. They were both the only backs that were being utilized, right? When you parse it out, and we had Amari and Hampton come back and be the lead back, but Kamani Vidal getting in there and getting enough touches to just make it annoying, it makes it difficult for the running back to have that true top 10 upside that we look for. So I was worried that we're drafting a player who ultimately just can't have high ceiling games. Got to be real steady, right? Real trustworthy, but is never going to have one of those slate breaking games because of the presence of another running back there. Now we get Greg Roman out of there, get Mike McDaniel in there, and I'm so excited because say what you want. I like Mike McDaniel. I enjoy his vibes, right? I enjoy this. Everyone was, making fun of the suit at the airport. They're like, that's who he is. He's very authentic to himself. The man will not live without drip, right? And designer, and you know what? Live your life as you want. And he is absolutely doing that. And going to LA is the right decision for him. Don't mess with trying to clean up Cleveland. It's not going to work out for you. He now gets to go and just design plays for Justin Herbert, right? And we saw this offense, even with the offensive system that Greg Roman had, obviously holding everything back a little bit there, not a little bit, like holding things back there. We still saw when Joe Alt was healthy, right? Unfortunately, they did not have Rashawn Slater for the entire season, but when Joe Alt was healthy, we did at the very least see that Justin Herbert does have high upside, right? We know that he can really get there from a fantasy perspective. If the offensive line is good. So timing wise, both of the injuries for Slater and Alt, they should both be ready to start the season. So as long as they're ready, the offensive line is good. I am really excited to see what Mike McDaniel can bring to Justin Herbert, Lad McConkey, and Quentin Johnston. Keenan Allen's a free agent. Hey, I don't think he's looking for a payday or anything at this point. I think he's just looking to be in a nice warm location. I think Chicago was absolutely awful for him. So I would not be shocked if he re-signs with LA, for very low cost there to, just give them a nice veteran presence there. And ultimately, we probably see Trey Harris move forward, because that's the feeling that I got there, is that we're ultimately going to see them push Trey Harris forward there, which makes a ton of sense because he did show some promise. So that'll be in one that I do like as a potential late round pick there, because we're going to be getting really good value on him. So yeah, early sleeper alert, assuming that we get that role minimized for Keenan Allen if he does end up re-signing. I think that with Justin Herbert and Mike McDaniel, we can push this offense forward in a way that would make 3 pass catchers fantasy relevant. Now it gets, interesting because you then throw in a Rondé Gadsden as well. So they've got so much talent as receiving options. And what Mike McDaniel can also do is he can get in there and he can utilize Amari Hampton as a receiver as well, right? He's not Devon Achane, but he is more than capable of, from a receiving perspective, breaking off runs as well, being electric in the pass game. So really, really looking forward to that. That makes me feel a lot better about all of these Chargers as a whole. That also means that obviously everybody knows what an offense with Mike McDaniel looks like. My God, we're getting an offense with Mike McDaniel and it's not going to have Tua. Makes me feel good inside. No offense to Tua, but we all know what this offense looks like. So obviously we're not going to get any kind of discount on Amari Hampton. He's going to go as a top 10 running back. It is what it is, right? I think we can still get a mild discount on the receivers. Ladd might creep up into the top 24, but honestly, I don't think so. I think because they are spread out with so many options, they're all still going to fall outside of that top 24 range. So we're going to get a lot of value from that wide receiver room. Obviously, you get worried about drafting that many guys or those type of guys with that much talent and pass catchers. But at the end of the day, if we're getting them as mid-round picks or late-round picks where we're getting nice discounts, I don't mind that at all, right? Where we had the problem is we were drafting Ladd in the second round. That did not pay off. But if you're getting Ladd, 6th round, that's not a problem, right? So this will be a fun one for me. I'm really, really, really looking forward to that for sure. Going back to the comments here. Yeah, Easy E. LA looks primed to roll next year. I'm so excited for it. LA Mike to the Chargers, chef's kiss, like perfection there. He made the right decision to avoid Cleveland and just, go with, and really for him too, and this will be a great opportunity for him to decide what he wants to do with his career, because he can either, take this 1 year, build up his resume, then jump back into the market, or he can, enjoy this opportunity, multi-year deal in a great location, right? He's so LA. So this will work out well for him. Or obviously a season with Justin Herbert is going to rebound his stock and he can jump back into the market. So it'll be fun to see. From Burkham, when selecting players, should we consider the head coach changes or the OC changes? Both. But I do lean towards OC a little bit more there, just because, we have to, I do lean towards OC a little bit more there, because as long as we've seen them as a play caller before and we can peg exactly what they're going to do. Like in theory, like what I was talking about with Seattle, like in theory, when we were looking at Clint Kubiak, we saw him previously and we kind of knew exactly what that system would look like and that it would aggressively favor Kenneth Walker. And as we have seen, when it's just Kenneth Walker, he's looked fine, right? So I think we focus more on the OCs, right, to just kind of understand the vision, especially with a lot of these guys being defensive hires like Jeff Hafley, right? Miami, defensive hire, obviously going to be very critical who he brings in, assuming, logically, a lot of times with these defensive hires, they bring in from the teams that they are coming from, right? So we could get a Matt LaFleur disciple over there in Miami. So that'll be interesting, right? Because that's not obviously, a lot of criticisms in terms of Matt LaFleur, and I'm a Packers fan, Matt LaFleur and his decisions, right? But the system is fine. The system works. That's no issue. Do you blow games and mess things up in the second half? Yeah, 100%. Can you not, do you have a get over the hump problem? Yes, unfortunately. but your system makes sense. So I have zero problem with someone going over and heading over to Miami with Jeff Hafley. So yeah, that's what I would pay attention to there. From Easy E, yeah, let's talk about this one. You are dropping in your personal rankings for all Atlanta players. I am so frustrated by that Kevin Stefanski hire. And I'm not going to lie, I am a Kevin Stefanski hater. I'll be upfront about it. And I do not think that I do not believe that he has proven that he can develop a quarterback. You we have not seen a rookie quarterback or a new young quarterback come into Kevin Stefanski and he developed them. You know, there's obviously been a lot of criticisms and saying like, you know, and that's how he got the whole Baker Mayfield drama and saying that he can't wait to see Kevin Stefanski 2 years because he feels disrespected and whatnot. And I'm on Baker's side on that, right? The whole situation was just extremely disrespectful, the way that they treated him. Especially considering like that final year, we always talk about it like he was playing through an injury that he probably shouldn't have been playing through, and really was giving it his all, was successful. And the way that it went down was obviously very frustrating for him. But when we're looking at Kevin Stefanski, you can sit there and argue all day like, oh, the quarterbacks failed. I don't know, man. You know, when I look at coaches that I believe in and I trust, like, hey, when I look at Matt LaFleur, I know that if you send a quarterback that needs some development over there or, you know, struggles maybe in some areas, that he can find the best way for that quarterback to succeed on the field. Like, it's no coincidence that Malik Willis, who looked objectively bad in Tennessee, actually went over to a good system. And what do you know? Oh my gosh, he's like a decent quarterback, right? Crazy, right? To the point where people are like, dang, he might be better than Jordan Love. Like, he showed very well. That's what happens when you're a good coach. So the fact that you could not, I don't care what your opinions are about Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders or, you know, Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield and whatnot, you had a lot of opportunities to try to develop and bring up young players, and you failed on all ends. And the only time that your offense functioned at a high level was with Joe Flacco. And we know that's not you. That's Joe. Joe does that. So, like, that's one of your Coach of the Year awards was literally on the back of Joe Flacco. That's not your coaching. I'm sorry. When I look at Kevin O'Connell can work with anything. I feel confidence, right? He can develop it up, make it work. He even had JJ McCarthy looking competent at the end of the season, right? I just don't see that from Kevin Stefanski. So to send him to Atlanta with a young quarterback that has to develop, that needs to be coached up, and you're sending over Kevin Stefanski and he's bringing in Tommy Rees from Cleveland. I hate to rant, but at the end of the day, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. I would love to be proven wrong. Prove me wrong. Like, I hope that he proves me wrong. I don't want to see Drake London suffer. I don't want to see, well, Kyle Pitts won't suffer. That's the only one that won't. I don't want to see Bijan suffer in any way, shape, or form. I don't think he will, because it's never been a bad system for running backs. But I fear that this is not going to go the direction that they want it to go. Kyle Pitts is the only one, assuming that they have to re-sign him. But given the fact that he probably, you know, I'm sure his agent and whatnot, they're, you know, looking at, you know, opportunities around the league, and they're saying, hey, man, it might be best for us to just stick here in Atlanta. We know that Kevin Stefanski's system aggressively targets tight ends. That's why he liked Dylan Gabriel, because he wanted a game manager, because all he wants is the short area passes to the tight ends. Now, granted, Kyle Pitts is more versatile. It's not just the short area situation. So it'll be interesting to see how they use him. The best version of Kyle Pitts is, you know, one that's used all over the field in a wide variety of locations, right? So we'll see there. But I think he feels like the only safe player, right? Just because we know there's a certain level of targets that are going to go to him. And also my fear here is that we know he has a relationship with Kirk Cousins. We know he probably likes Kirk Cousins. We know that Kirk Cousins and him in terms of a system, so I got a bad feeling that they're going to try and make this work with Kirk Cousins and put Michael Penix on the back burner, or make it a quarterback battle. And obviously, if it's a quarterback battle, we all know Kevin Stefanski will choose whoever he likes the most, and whoever he thinks, you know, will operate his system the most, not whoever will give the team the best chance to win, right? So, do I want to see another season of Kirk Cousins? Not the worst thing in the world. Do I think that they need to actually attempt to develop their first round quarterback in Michael Penix? Yeah, probably. But again, we're talking about they got rid of the coach that drafted him. They got rid of the GM that drafted him. Ultimately, this might be their red flag of, hey, like we're moving on from this. This didn't work out. This was not the pick that we want as an organization, and we're just going to move forward in another way here. So I am a wee bit concerned, unfortunately, on that end, right? Easy E just spreading fire around, and he's an equal fire spreader. Yeah. Easy E, does the man bake? Baker Mayfield, and yeah, it's going to be, at least we get good rivalry games here with Baker Mayfield in Atlanta. He's going to be motivated, and when Baker Mayfield, the best version of Baker Mayfield is the get it out the trenches, highly motivated Baker Mayfield. So maybe this down year was a good thing for him to be able to come off of, because we're going to see him. He's obviously very frustrated, and he'll have all his weapons back. I assume that if I had to guess, they'll probably re-sign Mike Evans. That's the only free agent there. And the running backs are free agents outside of Bucky Irving, but we'll see about that. But that's not a major issue there. So we should see a rebound from Baker there. From unpopular meta. So does Devon Achane's production possibly take a step back next year? It's very possible. And again, this is why, like Burkham was saying, we got to pay attention to the offensive coordinators and who Jeff Hafley is going to bring in. And I do assume that it is going to be someone from the LaFleur system. And it'll be interesting to see. We probably should pay attention to how long, if it is someone from Matt LaFleur, we should probably pay attention to how long they have been in the system, because there is a caveat. If they were there during the Aaron Jones years, Aaron Jones can absolutely be that transition usage of Aaron Jones to Devon Achane would make a lot of sense. Very similar backs, right? Aaron Jones, he can be used as a 3-down back, but ideally not someone that you want to use as a 3-down back. A player that you want to have upwards of 50 receptions, right? A player that can be utilized at the goal line, but you don't want to overwork them. So actually that could mesh very well if they conceptually bring in the way that they use Josh Jacobs, which is also, again, why Matt LaFleur is a good coach from a system perspective, because he was able to adjust in terms of usage from that, platoon situation with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones to doing more of a traditional 3-down back with Josh Jacobs very well. So I would not think that necessarily that means that we are going to see them potentially bring down Achane's production and try and assert more of a traditional heavier back, right? So I think, depending on what the hire is here, we could definitely see Achane keep his production the same. And maybe the hire at least helps bring down his ADP a little, because obviously the ADP is lofty. For him to put up that level of production in a down year for Miami, we get no discount, right? We got the discount last year in terms of people being a little bit skeptical of, new running backs coming in and Ollie Gordon, and wondering, hey, is he going to be able to make it through a whole season, health and whatnot? So it's entirely possible that we get a little bit of a mild discount here, but ultimately I think we're still going to be drafting him at a fairly high ADP, unless the offensive coordinator is a little bit of a questionable hire here. From Black Lion, can we talk about the Steelers? Caleb Johnson, DK Metcalf, Pat Freiermuth. Yes. This is a funny one, because I think there's a wide variety of rankings in terms of where people rank Pittsburgh as a landing spot for a head coach. Obviously a storied franchise, right? So you're not going into a loser location from that perspective. High expectations. You're following up Mike Tomlin, right? You're following up a Hall of Fame head coach, and you're going to a team that's in a precarious situation because you don't have a quarterback in contract, right? And Aaron Rodgers, what he will or won't do, the assumption we're making is that he is going to go. He's been very vocal about Mike Tomlin in a positive way. My impression is that we would not see him re-sign there with Pittsburgh. perhaps a retirement, perhaps he seeks somewhere else. Who knows? It'll be very interesting to see there. You got to hold on, buddy. What's up?
The TV's glitched.
Okay, ask Blair to help you. Okay. You got to ask him to help you, buddy. I know, but you got to ask him to help you. Go on. You can't be over here. Sorry, guys. He said the TV glitched. You got to go, baby. You got to go. Okay, very funny. You can't come in here. You cannot. You cannot. I'll talk to you later. Sorry. All right, let me get back to this. Yeah, so we assume that we will be without Aaron Rodgers here, unfortunately. And when we're looking at them in their draft position, and I just dropped a quarterback prospects ranking video. I did top 3 because, quite frankly, top 3 is literally all we have. Pittsburgh is going to be in a weird situation because they could have been a prime candidate for potentially being able, if Dante Moore had entered the draft, they could have easily been a prime candidate to get Ty Simpson. And that could push the, Ty Simpson, he's got a lot of high upside traits, right? I don't think that he teeters on, the absolute bust, shaky JJ McCarthy situation, right? I think he could, easily have gone, not that he's not a player comp to Jackson Dart, but that he could have easily gone the Jackson Dart direction, right? In terms of someone being drafted in the late round and, going into a situation where he, maybe can immediately become, if not at the beginning of the season, but at some point the starter. And Pittsburgh would have been a really prime location for him to go. But now because Dante Moore is not in the draft, I don't have a lot of confidence that Pittsburgh is going to be able to get a quarterback, and they might have to be in the market for, they're definitely going, because they don't know if they will be able to get into the market for a quarterback. We're going to see a lot of these teams, the Jets, Arizona. Well, Arizona doesn't have to because they have Jacoby Brissett on roster. But the Jets, Pittsburgh, right? A lot of these teams that have to fill that quarterback situation are unfortunately going to have to dip into the veteran market because they will have no clue if they can actually get their quarterback that they want in the first round. We don't know if, obviously from a sleeper perspective, Trinidad Chambliss, that's my QB3. If he enters the NFL draft, obviously he's fighting it here. So we're in such a weird position in terms of what quarterback Pittsburgh can actually have. So more than likely, we're going to have a retread veteran quarterback there. When I'm looking at the players individually, DK Metcalf, obviously, we would imagine that he is retained. He's not a free agent or anything, but obviously, when you have big changes in the organization, coaching changes, quarterback situation, you can potentially have changes made in terms of trading off players or whatnot. So I think DK will remain there and be the wide receiver 1. They have to invest in another wide receiver. I don't think it makes logical sense for them to invest in a first round wide receiver. So it'll probably be a day 2 pick. So I think DK remain the alpha. And again, the ADP, we're going to be drafting him, not an issue. So I don't have a problem with him as a mid-round target, depending on what the quarterback situation is. Especially because we don't know what's going to happen with Arthur Smith either. So we don't know what the head coach situation is going to be. We don't know what the offensive vision is going to be. Is it going to be a run-heavy traditional situation? Are they going to try and open up the pass a little bit more with whatever quarterback they get? Like, there's so many question marks around what direction Pittsburgh can even go here. Pat Freiermuth, unfortunately, will also be, depends on what that Arthur Smith situation is. God forbid that Arthur Smith gets hired as the head coach there, then we would unfortunately be in a complete no-go situation. If we get someone else in there that does not want to get creative with using like 10,000 tight ends, then yeah, we could see that bounce back from Pat Freiermuth. I need that from a dynasty perspective, like badly there in multiple leagues. Now, Caleb Johnson can get into a fresh new situation, right? Because of the changes in coaching staff, and they'll obviously have different views of him and could potentially work him back into, being in consideration for a lead back because of the changes there. But I will say that the problem with Caleb Johnson and why I found it difficult, mind you, Kenneth Gainwell is a free agent. So we'll have to see on that one. But I will say the issue with Baker Mayfield, with Caleb Johnson on that one is that the reason that he was utilized very seldomly was because he really is a liability from a pass protection perspective. And that's always one of the key ones for me. Like it's one thing, obviously you have to develop that level of trust from your head coach. That's why it took us a while to see RJ Harvey in, a stronger capacity on third downs and whatnot, because he had to assert himself in terms of that trust with Sean Payton. Caleb Johnson doesn't have that skill set. Like if we look to Washington with the Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, the reason why he can't operate as a third down back is because he does not have that skill set. And a lot of times it's a little bit difficult for you to develop. Sean Tucker in Tampa Bay, excellent runner. Every time he, gets the opportunity to have 15, 20 carries, thrives, right? Great runner. Liability in pass protection, unfortunately. So those are things that you just can't work around there. So hopefully Caleb is able to work around it. But if we get another season of him being suspect in that area, that's a concern. It's also a concern because, if he's an early down back, they like Jalen Warren is an early down back. Jalen Warren is in contracts. So I'm not feeling positively about Caleb Johnson. Maybe from a dynasty perspective, if you've got him, this is a good sell-off opportunity just to take advantage of the coaching changes here, especially if they hire somebody who was someone who could be very running back forward, right, from an offensive perspective there. From Burkham, thoughts on Kenneth Walker. So Kenneth Walker, the injury to Zach Charbonnet is interesting. I have a video that I filmed and I'm going to release like tomorrow or Saturday on my top running back landing spots on my YouTube channel. And I had Seattle on there because the assumption was that Kenneth Walker would exit, right? Because you've got Zach Charbonnet. They clearly want to use a committee. Now, just be clear on that. They're not going to change that. When you look at the usage of Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, if you combine the carries, physically that cannot be handled by one back. They will move forward and they like it. They like utilizing it. They lean aggressively on the ground. I do think that they will move forward utilizing two backs. I say that Clint Kubiak is likely gone. But I would assume they would continue to utilize that. I would assume that Mike McDonald would want to hire somebody with a similar vision because it worked so well. Why make major adjustments to the vision and usage of your offense when it's literally on the cusp of getting you to a Super Bowl, right? But Kubiak probably gone. But when we're looking at Kenneth Walker, my problem here is that I worry that he is going to be forced to stay in Seattle via a franchise tag, because Zach Charbonnet's injury happening so late in the season makes it difficult to believe that he is going to be 100. Now, it could happen, right? It's possible. I mean, it's an 8-month turnaround. That's a little aggressive, though. We've seen it, but for a running back, I don't feel super good about that. So the timing of the injury makes it difficult to believe that Charbonnet will be ready at the beginning of the season. And if he is not ready at the beginning of the season, why let Kenneth Walker walk? Just retain him. Franchise tag and or give him a contract, but I don't know. I don't like, if I were him, I would not. No, granted, he's a running back, and if he has the opportunity to sign a long-term deal with anybody, you take that money, right? Because at the end of the day, you know that all your bread and butter is going to be made on this first contract signed here. So it all depends on what money is offered and if they franchise tag him. And if he is the lead back for Seattle in 2026 with Zach Charbonnet recovering from the injury, it's really hard not to be high on him. We'll naturally have a discount in ADP because obviously we drafted him a lot higher and it just whiffed completely. But with Zach Charbonnet not there due to injury, theoretically he would have massive upside. And we've seen that, right, in the playoffs here. We know what he would be if he was the lead back here. So it's going to be very interesting to see if they franchise tag and keep him, because if he remains in Seattle, I can get on board with drafting him high just because of the upside that he would have for sure. And then it takes running backs a while. Like, look at Javonte Williams. It takes running backs a while to get back into it after their ACL. And it's not just him. Like, think about all the running backs that have torn their ACLs, right? you don't just come back and you're yourself immediately, right? You need time, not even just torn ACLs. Like think about Tony Pollard and his injury. It was not an ACL, it was an ankle. Literally took him half a season to come back and feel like himself. He said so himself. So even if Zach Charbonnet comes back, let's say mid-season, like say he's a late October return from this injury, they're not going to utilize him to the capacity that they've been utilizing him. That's just not realistic with the running back here. So Kenneth Walker is going to get a big boost there if he stays in Seattle. It's sad for us from a free agency perspective because he was going to be the golden back on the market. You know, him and Breece Hall, but I don't think the Jets are going to let Breece go. Sadly, I think they've called him a priority keeper there. They're going to re-sign him. They're not going to let him go. Oh my God, awful. They're not going to let him go because at the end of the day, we got to remember when these guys come into their contract year, the reason why, our teams don't have an issue of letting it, like, hey, they don't really care, letting it expire and having a deal beforehand is because they can always franchise tag and ride that, or they can franchise tag, and then if you're unhappy about it, they can trade you away and get something out of it in terms of a pick. So I have never been of the opinion that he was going to walk or they were going to let him walk. So yeah, my thought was we were getting a really nice running back class with, thinking that Travis Etienne was going to stay. So I'm not going to, put him in that. But, Travis Etienne, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, we were finally getting just this excellent free agency class at running back. And now I got a bad feeling that we're getting a bunch of players staying in the same location, though. Ugh, frustrating. From Wolf Marines, when Puka was a rookie, you called it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Is there any wide receiver that you think might have a Puka-like upside? This is perfect because we are running up on the Senior Bowl. The Senior Bowl is like, I cannot stress this enough. I literally sit down and watch every single day of practice because for me, that is the best location to be able to truly look at a player and their skill set. So I'm actually going to do a video next week, I believe. Telling people which players to watch at the Senior Bowl. And then also after the Senior Bowl, I will do a recap of which players I thought showed best at the Senior Bowl. Because it's a real easy way to hit on players. Puka was a Senior Bowl, actually, like off the top of I have it written down, but Puka was a Senior Bowl guy. Chimray DK was one of the Senior Bowl guys that I loved last year. Because you get to see them do individual drills. And when you're looking at a player, like they're one-on-one in the practice, like the game is fun, but the practices are where you sit there and you watch them run the individual drills. And it allows you to see, like, it's cool to watch them in college, right? But to see them actually like run routes next to each other, like back to back to back, you can tell. You can say, oh man, this kid is sharp, right? And then you can see somebody else and be like, you didn't quite show the way that I thought you would. Interesting. So yeah, that's a fun, like, who struggled? Like, very interesting. Tez Johnson struggled a little. Well, no, he was okay, but he didn't really stand out. So I was not shocked that his draft stock kind of plummeted a little bit there. So yeah, I love Senior Bowl. I will be identifying my sleeper rookies during the Senior Bowl week there. So make sure that you're tuned in for the post Senior Bowl video there, recapping the guys that absolutely stood out. Because again, it's such an easy way to hit. Because Puka was one of them that just really just nailed it on all cylinders, right? You do the individual drills and you just look at them and that's a stud. That's a superstar right there. But thank you, Wolf Marines. From Tri Lambs, if you're the Texans, what do you do with CJ Stroud? Extend or not? They're in a kind of Tua-like situation, right? Where they're probably going to end up extending him because at the end of the day, you do it because, it sometimes pays off, right? Because Jacksonville unwarrantedly gave Trevor Lawrence that massive contract. You get the right coach in. Now he looks like somebody that was deserving of that massive contract. I think they will. You can make excuses for CJ Stroud and say, man, the offensive line needs to get better and whatnot. And for sure, like you need to put him behind a competent offensive line. I think it's ill practice they didn't do enough to try and improve it in the offseason. I don't know what they were expecting on that end. Maybe they thought it was good enough to get them by with the high level that the defense was at. I don't know. Conceptually, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But man, that was a rough showing. That was a rough showing, and it's just been rough showings after rough showings. At the end of the day, and it's ironic, like people love to post, since I'm chronically online, people love to post that picture of him and Caleb Williams where he was advising Caleb Williams to keep his head up and say that was the moment that it all turned south. And that he thought so highly of his rookie season, and now unfortunately it's just crashing back into him. He's talented, but it's not as if he doesn't have, you can't make the argument if he needs weapons. You got weapons. You got weapons on weapons, right? We see you with weapons. There's no issue there. I mean, Nico is more than anyone can ask for. Obviously, Jaden Higgins showed very well. You got a solid tight end and Don Schultz, so there's no issue on that end. Running backs, obviously, we're down a little bit. That'll be an interesting. We'll talk about that in a second. Running backs, obviously, we're down a little bit from a theoretical talent perspective, but ultimately, I think Woody Marks came through. So they'll keep him, but man, they really have to give him the perfect offensive line. It's very clear at this point that if the line is not perfection, it ain't working out. But side note there while we're on the subject of the Texans, Joe Mixon and his mystery injury that has been described. I'm baffled at the fact that we still can't be told exactly what this injury is. There was no clarity there. A freak accident, but not like a jet ski accident, not like a weird freak accident, but it was a freak accident. The amount of people joking, saying, yeah, he must have, pew-pewed himself, which I'm kind of getting on board with that theory. Like, maybe that was it. Because I don't understand what kind of mystery injury we have. Freak accident, and they said they still we haven't seen him in a while, so what is the deal? Yeah, Tri Lambs, I think that was it. What is the deal here? Because you were injured all off season. There was a reminder, there was no point at which during OTAs or anything that we ever saw Joe Mixon on the field. We never saw it, and we still have zero evidence that he can and will step on the field, and they are not giving any indication. So we'll know soon if they draft a running. Weirdest situation ever. Yeah, I think there is no way. I'm sorry to anyone that has dynasty shares. I really am. I think that's the weirdest situation. I think you got Kenny Golladay on that one. And I feel for you because I remember Kenny Golladay is up there at my top hated list, right? Because I got Kenny Golladay on multiple teams, and but I feel like at least Kenny Golladay had a real injury. He just milked it. Whatever is going on with Joe Mixon and his freak accident, we'll never know. From Sony, Tara's dope. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And you also say go Hawks. Yeah. And you will be in the Super Bowl unless we get a Jarrett Stidham miracle, which I don't think is going to happen. I mean, the defense is good, maybe, but I don't think. I think we see Sam Darnold, and it'll be very interesting to see what we get on the other side there. Not the NFC. Sorry. My bad. I think we're good on the Seahawks there. I think they will win that. So I think it'll be Sam Darnold and obviously, unfortunately, New England getting that Jarrett Stidham situation there handled. I think that Sam Darnold can make it. I think he can. So that makes a ton of sense from a Super Bowl perspective. So I think you got a good chance there to make it. Yeah, I'm rooting for you. Get some fresh blood in there, right? Get some fresh blood. Obviously, New England is not fresh blood, so we're getting that regardless. But Seahawks would be a nice fresh blood situation that I would like to see. Hopefully Hawks draft Jonah Coleman, Seattle Juice. Yeah, that could work out there. I wouldn't put it past them. I really wouldn't. Tokyo Thrift said, and also Seattle, because Seattle, and I admire this about them, just side note on this, from like Seattle does not get enough credit from a management perspective. They've done an excellent job. They have gotten rid of coaches and quarterbacks that they saw hitting a cliff and were able to get stuff out. Like you managed to trade away 2 quarterbacks, get something out of it. And you were 100% correct that they hit a cliff in terms of age. Like kudos to you. Their draft choices are excellent. They draft they draft talent versus trying to fill positionally, right? So, like, hey, then that's which is why they ended up with Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, because while they didn't have a running back need, they saw an incredible talent that they wanted. So kudos to them in what they do. For sure. From Tokyo Thrift, shout out to me. Thank you. Because of my insight, you won first place in 3 leagues. Nice. First place in 3 leagues, second place in 4 leagues, and third place in 1 league. Congratulations. That is an incredible run. That is an amazing 2025. That is awesome. Congratulations on that. Tokyo Thrift said Joe Mixon pulled Ricky Williams. That's entirely possible. That is entirely possible. Yeah, should I send a 3rd pick for Mixon? If you're looking to acquire him for a 3rd pick, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. If you've got him and you're wanting to trade him off for a 3rd, yeah, I would move off for literally anything. But I wouldn't acquire him at this point. I mean, I got a bad feeling that this is just based off the fact that they continue to be so insanely vague. And I don't know why, because I'm in Houston. And I don't feel like they have, well, granted, I feel like they did know about all the Deshaun Watson stuff and they kind of skirted over all of that. So you know what? Now that I think about it, they low-key might, like the management might be low-key intentionally vague repeatedly. So yeah, and actually now that I think about it, I'm not shocked that they're being so evasive on this, and I wouldn't put it past them that Mixon is 100% done and they're just straight up not saying it. So yeah. Real quick before we close things out, run through a few other hires there. Let's see. We talked about Buffalo. We talked about Tennessee. We talked about Miami. We didn't talk about the Giants there. It can't get any worse, right? Harbaugh's fine. I think they got the man they wanted. It's a fine hire. Ultimately, is it going to be the one that takes them to the Super Bowl? I don't know, but I think that he'll turn the team around very well in terms of bringing in the right personnel to really push Jackson Dart forward, push the offense forward, build up that defense, has a ton of talent there. So he's good at identifying and, putting people around him that make a lot of sense. So I'm fine with that. It can't get any worse, right? We talked about Kevin Stefanski and the debacle of that Atlanta is literally recreating Cleveland. How do you let that man bring his OC? And we saw what was put out onto the field. At no point did you ever look at Cleveland with anybody at quarterback and say, man, this is a competent offense. We had literally 3 different quarterbacks. Not a single one of them looked competent. And we know for a fact that Joe Flacco went on to a team with an objectively bad offensive line and looked like Joe Flacco. Like we thought he was cooked in Cleveland. Oh, shoot, Joe Flacco doesn't have it anymore. No, he's got it. It's just Cleveland is a cesspool. And really Kevin Stefanski, right? So such a shame there. I'm not entirely sure what is inspiring that. We talked about Zach Charbonnet's injury, Bo Nix. We didn't really talk about Bo Nix. There's not too much to talk about Bo Nix's injury other than the fact that was painful. I cannot believe, seeing injuries in person, right? But then getting the announcement right after the game, like, okay, yeah, he's done, was shocking, to say the least. It'll be very interesting to see the timeline on his recovery. Good that he went ahead and got that surgery super quick, right? But again, ankles can be very tricky, as Chris Godwin. So you could get that quick turnaround, right? But at the end of the day, we'll have to really monitor the situation with him. And then we talked about, one thing that we did not talk about was Eric Bieniemy back to Kansas City. I feel positively about that. You can say what you want about him from a coaching perspective, right? And perhaps abrasion and whatnot. But at the end of the day, the Kansas City offense had 0 issues with him. This offense under Matt Nagy has been not it. At the end of the day, I worried that they were just relying on the defense, but no, I think it was really that Nagy just cannot run offenses. So it'll be good to get Eric Bieniemy back in there. He was much better for the running back room as well. Kansas City, spoiler alert, is one of my top running back landing spot. I think they will draft a running back. A lot of mock drafts have them drafting a running back. And since we have seen Eric Bieniemy with a rookie running back, we know that they have zero problem. That was Isaiah Pacheco. We know that they have zero problem turning that offense over to a rookie and relying on them as an early down back here. So, and they don't make you have to wait a season, right? You don't have to earn it or anything. If you're the best, they'll turn it over to you. And he's a good running back coach. I think he's a fine running back coach to develop somebody. So feel positively about it there. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. Malik Hakeem says you hate it for your guy Jackson Dart. Yeah. It depends on, well, did he officially hire Todd Monken, or was that just, let me look that up. I can't remember if he actually hired Monken, or was that, no, it wasn't. It's not official yet. It's expected to happen there. I like Todd Monken. So I think you'll be okay. I like Todd Monken. I think he was fine. So, and I think he'll mesh with Jackson Dart. I don't think that Monken was the issue. So if that's the hire, I don't have a problem with it. From Whodat, we did talk about Mike McDaniel. Short of it, though, I feel super positive about it for literally everybody in that offense. Basically, we should see Amarian Hampton's ADP be a very easy top 10. It's not going to dip at any point, just because we know of the upside that you can get from a pass catching perspective with Mike McDaniel. So we'll probably see, top 10 from Amarian Hampton, but I think we'll still get good discounts on the pass catchers there because there's so many of them. And naturally, because, that spreads it out, makes it a little bit difficult to rely on them as high draft picks. So we should be able to get Ladd McConkey, and, Quentin Johnston very easily as mid-round picks. Aronde Gadsden, low end tight end one, right? So I think we should be fine. I do like investing in them for sure. As a Saints fan, you love the new hire. I bet you do. And then Malik Hakeem, Matt Nagy destroyed my guy, Justin Fields. I'm hoping that nobody hires Matt Nagy. I'm hoping that we don't get cursed with that and that he accidentally finds himself out of a job. That would be funny. And then Malik saying Monken gets Greg Roman vibes, just predictable. I think some of that was tilted because of the addition of Derrick Henry. But I feel like when Todd Monken first got in there, he brought a lot of fresh college perspectives. Maybe things have been adjusted as he's been working through the NFL, right? But when he first came, I feel like he brought really fresh college perspectives to the game there that were good for Lamar Jackson. So, and now granted, we don't want Jackson Dart running too much. He's got to be a little bit more careful. But you know what? Perhaps they can give him a masterclass on, or have him work with someone in the offseason that can give a masterclass in not getting hit. You can run and not get hit. Lamar doesn't get hit like that. Like, somebody help Jackson Dart out like that. You can run and just, not get hit, man. It's not that hard. It's not. You don't have to be Baker Mayfield in it when you're running. You don't have to seek the contact, right? But other than that, I appreciate you all tuning in. Hopefully we have a lot more fun updates next week in terms of coaching changes as well, hires and adjustments to fantasy perspective. But again, reminder, Dear Miss Fantasy Podcast, make sure that you're subscribed on all platforms and make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel as well. I'm dropping the videos and we're getting started in terms of the rookie profiles. Quarterbacks were first. It's obviously a little light because do I want to do a, quarterback overview of, Grant Nussmeyer. No, I don't. Even Cade Klubnik. Sorry, buddy. So yeah, it was just a little light up top. But once we get into the running backs and wide receivers, we're gonna start doing some extended profiles, and we're gonna do free agency talks. That's my favorite. 100% free agencies, landing spot videos. So make sure that you are subscribed. As always, thank you so much for joining in. Thank you for being an awesome chat. I will talk to you all again next week, unless something goes sideways, because I am in Houston, and apparently, power could be sketchy with this ice storm. But hey, whatever. We're gonna think positive. That we're gonna be all right. But other than that, I will talk to you all next week. Hopefully, have a good one, guys.